Thanks for joining. So today what we want to do is go through and show you all the cool new features of Sophos XG version 17 that'll be coming out here hopefully in about 3-4 weeks. Mid-October, I think, is kind of the scheduled timeline. So with that, we'll just kind of jump right into it. So some of the things we're going to go over is what are all the new features, and I'll jump into a live system that we have running version 17 and show you some of those things live, and then talk about some of the new hardware that's come out and some different deployment options for different environments to try to get XG into that environment. So start right off, what's new in version 17? So Sophos XG version 17 brings a lot of exciting new differentiators along with a number of top requested features. So one of the big things I'll talk about is Synchronized App Control and web keyword monitoring, which I'll touch on more here in a bit. Those are probably two of the bigger security features added. Also, there's been some nice enhancements to the IPS engine, the intrusion prevention, and app control policy tools to make it a little easier for things such as smart list. And what that does for you is, if you go through and you add criteria to your policy and new patterns are added, you don't have to go back and manually add them. They'll just be selected for you as new patterns come in. So that's pretty exciting. As far as management and troubleshooting, there's a couple things, unfortunately, that I won't be able to show you live, but I have a couple slides that'll show that. As far as the Unified Log Center, I would touch on that more, but I don't have access to it right now. That's probably coming here maybe in a week or so, but that's a really exciting feature is the enhancements in logging and reporting. Another big one is the policy test simulator. Anyone on the call that's familiar with the previous version of Sophos UTM-9 had that in there, and it was one of my favorite features where you can go in and kind of simulate what happens. You type in a URL, put in a user, and what's going to happen with that, and it shows you everything from which policy it hits, why it's blocked. It's just a real nice troubleshooting tool, so I'll be able to show you that live. Some other things that were requested was IPv2 support and VPN, so it's good to see that made it in. One of the ones I like, and I know us internally, just because we manage a lot of these firewalls for our customers, is some real nice enhancements to the NAT rules. So being able to do add services, a service group for TCP and UDP into a single rule. I'll show you that in live. So those are kind of the highlights of some of the new features, and then we'll touch on some of the bigger ones here. So Synchronized App Control is probably the biggest one, and what it does is it really represents a breakthrough in next-gen firewalls and application control, and truly believe that Sophos will be the envy of the industry with this feature, and I'll explain a little bit more as to why here. So the problem with application control in today's firewalls is, and you can see from some of these reports, is the majority of the traffic that gets identified is uncategorized or unknown. The reason for that is because firewalls have to rely on a signature to know about the application or traffic, and so some custom verticals and markets will never have a signature because they're so unique or one-offs. And then at the same time, some apps are evasive, such as like BitTorrent, and constantly changing behaviors and signatures. And then others just simply resort to just general HTTP and HTTPS traffic. So the result of that's a complete lack of visibility into the apps on your network and what's really going on. And so you obviously can't control what you can't see. So the solution to that is the Synchronized App Control. And really what it's doing is taking advantage of the relationship between the XG firewall and the endpoint and synchronized security. And with that, we get Synchronized App Control. So show you kind of how that works and what that looks like here. So when the firewall sees an application it can't identify with signatures, now what it can do is ask the endpoint what kind of applications generating that traffic. So the endpoint can then share the executable, the path, and then sometimes it's category, and I'll explain more where that comes into play, and give you visibility into what kind of traffic. And if, well, here, let me, it must be on the next slide. So if it can't determine the category, we as administrators have the ability to categorize that application and assign it into an existing policy, so that's pretty cool. So the one thing with that is kind of how does this work? It does rely on Sophos endpoint or intercept and the XG running that synchronized heartbeat together. So if you're a current XG customer or running a third-party endpoint client, you won't be able to take advantage of this synchronized app control, but I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in some of those deployment options. But one of the things to keep in mind is it does run alongside intercept or endpoint advanced, or a combination of the two. So if you have a third-party antivirus but kind of want that next level, next-gen protection, you can put intercept alongside your current antivirus and then still get the benefits of that app control. And I'll discuss a little bit more on those deployment options. So here's kind of what it looks like and how it works. So this is just kind of the updated control center, and I'll go into touch more detail when I jump into a live scenario. But here's what the enhanced application control looks like. So what it's going to do is go through and it discovers all the uncategorized applications that are running. So you can see, like in this example, towards the bottom we have like PuTTY or BitTorrent. So from there, what we can do is click on the Customize button, and then we look and we get to see the executable path. So in this particular case, it came up as uncategorized. So what we can do from there is drop that down and pick which category we want to put it in. So in this case, most likely peer-to-peer would be the most appropriate. And so by categorizing it, if we have a policy in place to block peer-to-peer or throttle it or any sort of QoS or traffic shaping, by going in here and categorizing it, it just automatically adds that to that list of applications and puts it in that policy. So really cool. Some other of the features that I discussed on the previous slide, and one of the bigger ones is the web keyword monitoring. So what this is going to be really popular in education, and I know a lot of people on this call are in the K-12 or higher ed vertical, but really it could be for anybody, even a business, not just protecting students and staff, but also adults. So what it does is it allows custom keyword libraries to be uploaded to the appliance for any subject area, and then the web filter will identify the content that matches those keywords. So, you know, a couple examples like bullying or self-harm, inappropriate language, terrorism. So when that word appears in the content on a website, either because of a search or just browsing, it'll match and can be logged or blocked depending on kind of how you set that up. So really exciting for educational institutions, but really anybody if there's certain things you don't want your employees going to as well. And I'll show you that in a little bit more detail. So just a couple slides, I'll show this live, but basically what we do is go through and determine what that list is, upload it, and say what do we want to do? Do we want to log it or block it? And then we also get a custom report. No information in this report, but I think I have some that I did this morning, so at least we have some live information to look at. One of the other big ones is firewall rule management. So anybody currently running an XG will appreciate this, and especially if you have a pretty extensive rule set. So the way it is currently is, you know, we have all our business or NAT rules, our outbound rules, user rules, and it can be a long list. I mean, I can think of some of the ones we work with that have, you know, upwards of 80 or 100 rules. And the problem with that is, you know, you got to scroll up and down, kind of find which rule you're looking for. So what this new firewall rule management does is it shortens or makes the lines a little bit smaller, more condensed, as well as being able to group them. So you can group them into, you can keep it real simple and say, I'm going to group all my NAT rules, and then I'm going to group all my inbound. Or thinking of a school environment, you could group them by school. Here's all our middle school rules. Here's all our high school rules. You can kind of do it however you want, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. But really nice, and keeps it a lot more organized now, and makes that rule set not such a big long list to try to hunt things down. So this is the one that unfortunately I don't get to show you live, but a really exciting feature is this unified log viewer. So basically what we're doing is taking the log viewer and just making it into one long list. So today, prior to XG version 17, if you can think of it, or if there's people on this call that aren't running XG, what it was is you would open up the log viewer, and you would, I think it drops you right into like system logs or something like that, and then you have to drop down to pick web filter. So what this is doing is just taking it all, and then I don't know if you can tell from the screenshot, but you basically can do searches for different things, whether it's an IP address, search the word block, and then set up the smart filter. So you can see right there where it says like module all, you could drop that down and just say firewall or just say web. But the idea being it's just all unified in one log viewer, and a lot more verbose information that you get to see out of it. So that's going to be exciting, and I don't know for certain, but I'm going to anticipate we'll see that probably here, hopefully like in a week or two. From what I understand, it'll definitely be part of the general availability release mid-October. The other part of that is the policy test tool that I was talking about, and I'll show you that live, but you can kind of see from the screenshot the idea is putting in a URL and testing it against different either web policies or firewall rules and seeing what would happen. So where this is beneficial is again thinking of a school environment or any environment, but rather than setting up your firewall rule and your web filtering and then running over to a machine, logging in as a student and seeing what happens when you go to that site, you can do all that stuff right from the firewall. So that's kind of all the highlighted features, and again, here in a sec we'll jump into a live XG and look at some of those. Next, I want to talk about kind of the deployment options, the appliances and things we can do there. So this one probably doesn't necessarily apply to anyone on the call, because 9 times out of 10 we or some other partner is going to be helping set these up for you. But this is nice, the new streamlined setup wizard. And so what it does is it just kind of goes through step by step and really guides you along. So when you open up the box, plug it in, fire it up, kind of walks you through step by step. And one of the other nice things that we're excited for internally is the delayed registration. So we can go through this whole wizard, set it up, get it up and running without having to register. We just have to register it, prior to 30 days. But I know that's been a hang up for us in a couple instances where we got to get a hold of the owner or some admin and make sure and get it registered, synchronized, and this will just make it a lot easier for deployment. So we're excited about that. Talk a little bit about the new hardware. Now, this is something I was debating on pulling out of this presentation, because I know I was just looking at the attendee list, and I know some of you have just recently bought an appliance, and I don't want you going, oh my gosh, I should have waited. I need the new box. No, it's not quite like that. It's we always size the appliances appropriately for your environments, and they're going to run just fine even without these new appliances. But some of the highlights of the new appliances that come out is the 1U appliances all will have the option for a redundant power supply, which wasn't the case before. That was, I think it might have been the 450 model, which is right below the 2U bigger models, but all 1U will have the option if you want a redundant power supply, so that's going to be nice. new CPUs for increased performance. But again, I don't want you to get scared off if you've just recently purchased one, because again, it's sized appropriately. But probably one of the most exciting things is the bypass ports. So what that'll do is it allows you to plug it in like inline and into an existing environment, and I have a slide that shows that. But if it ever goes down or needs to be rebooted because of firmware, it's still going to pass traffic. So that's pretty exciting. So that'll be available on all the 1U models, and then there'll be a expansion option for the 2Us if you do want bypass. And then one other thing is PoE modules being available. So if it's a smaller environment that we're looking at, and we just have like a couple access points or something, don't necessarily need to get a power over Ethernet switch. We can just power those right from the firewall. So that's a pretty cool new feature. So some of the deployment options. Now this particular one, this is, I guess, what we consider the best, and what we would recommend. And this is where your firewall is the Sophos XG, and you're running endpoint and intercept. Not only are you getting what we believe is the best protection, but in ease of management, but that's also what will give you that security heartbeat and synchronized app control. So that's what we recommend, but obviously that's not realistic in a lot of cases where maybe you're happy with your firewall, your current firewall, or the budget's just not there. So the other thing we can do is, and I talk about this, is run it in line with your existing. So if you have a Sonic Wall or Palo Alto, whatever, and you love that thing, well, okay, that's great, keep that in line, but put XG in line with that running alongside intercept, and that'll give you that synchronized heartbeat and app control. And then as time progresses, you can start doing different things like adding sandboxing and maybe turning up a few more features, and maybe someday eventually that will become your firewall. But just because you have a firewall and you like it doesn't mean you can't not get these new features that we've been talking about today. This one, I left it in there. It doesn't necessarily pertain to anybody running XG, but this is more something that we can do and we offer, but it's called tap mode or discover mode. And what this does, what we do a lot of times with this is either a proof of concept or like a security audit, where we can plug the XG into a spanned or mirrored port of a network, and it'll basically collect all that traffic and dump out reports for you. So not necessarily a deployment option, but just something that we do. So that's it as far as the slides. So let's take a jump in there and look at it live. Brandon, have we had any questions pop up?
Yeah, there's a couple in there, and we can tackle those whenever you want.
Well, let's go ahead and maybe just read them off while I'm getting logged in here, and then see if we can address them.
Okay. So the first one is, by grouping rules, how does that affect top-down firewall rules as far as the order of execution?
Yeah, great question, and it was something I was going to address. So let's just go ahead and talk about that right now. So the order of operations obviously still does apply, and Sophos works from top down. So if you have a block rule above a allow rule, it's going to hit that block rule first. So order of operations is still important. So when you group them, you just got to make sure, so I'll touch on these in a little bit more detail, but take this blue one here, for example, and I need that up here. I can just drag it up there and reorder it.
Cool. Next question was, is this upgrade from the current XG seamless, and what is is it an easy upgrade path?
Yep, another good question. So yes, it'll be. So I'll just show you what it'll look like. So if we come down here so when it becomes available, let's just use that October 10th date. What you'll see, and I guess I should backtrack a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be totally available that day. It might be a staged release, but so you come to backup and firmware, and what you'll see it'll say like Sophos 17.0 whatever, and then it'll basically be a button that says download and upgrade. Once you do that, the appliance will reboot, probably 3-4 minutes, and you'll be running version 17. So yeah, it's not a massive upgrade. It's more of a firmware upgrade.
Great. And last one so far is, I know you kind of answered it, but time frame for the release then? Just can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's supposed to be around that mid-October. I mean, definitely don't quote me on it. I think 10th was the date I heard, but obviously things come up. So it'll probably be around that time frame.
Great. Well, that's all we have for now. Thanks for throwing those in, guys. We really like doing the Q&A part of this, so keep them coming.
Yeah, it helps break it up for me, just babbling the whole time. So good questions. Okay, so I'll just kind of go through some of the features that we talked about kind of in more action. So this is the new control center, but really not all that new. It should look a lot familiar if you are currently running XG. One of the new things you'll notice is the Synchronized App Control. So we have, I left this kind of untouched for the demo today, so we can kind of take a look and see. But otherwise, pretty much the same. Since debating on talking about app controller, let's talk about the firewall rules first. So I left this a little bit untouched. So you can see we have kind of a lot of rules, not a ton, but I mean, there's kind of a lot to sift through. So with the grouping that I showed in the screens, what we can do is put these, so in this example, I just had a couple for our backup servers, and I just put those in a group. And then to kind of show you how you would even do that, is let's just go ahead and create a new group. So I'm just going to click on this NAT rule here, create a new group, and let's, just like the example I gave during the slides, is let's just do all NAT rules and give it a description, NAT rules. Can't type. So now we have that, and then what we can do is just go through each of our rules and add it to that group. And I'll just do a couple here to save time so it's not so boring, but just to kind of show the concept of what that would look like. I'll do one more here. And like I say, I mean, there's so many different ways you can do this and get creative on how to organize it. Again, you might want to keep it that simple and say, yep, these are all my NAT rules, these are all my outbound rules, and have two groups. Or you might want to say, here's all my web application rules, put them there. Just a lot of different ways to do it. So I'll kind of jump back to the groups in a sec, but you can see it's a little bit different layout. So we have, a little more condensed lines, so we can kind of see the traffic in and out, what it's doing, going from the LAN. And as you can see, hopefully it's coming across on the GoToWebinar, is when I hover my mouse over this, we get some more information. And same thing over here. So at a quick glance, I can look at this rule and say, okay, from my LAN and which network going to where and what services and what it's doing. So I can see here that I have a web policy applied to this rule. I have an IPS rule and which of my internet lines it's going out just from hovering over. So I don't need to go into that rule to get all that information. So that's kind of nice. And then, then we have our groups and same sort of deal. And then from here, also I showed you how to do it. What we can do is detach the rule. So if we want this ConnectWise rule to not be in that group anymore, we can just detach it and it'll pull it out of that group. But going back to the question we have, we do have to keep order of operations. So even if we have a bunch of groups, we just have to remember that the order is still important. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to show on the firewall. So let's look at the applications. A couple different ways to get there. I could have clicked on applications here, but just going back to the control center, I can actually click on this 11 new apps. And so here's kind of what we've discovered in the last couple days of uncategorized, and a couple of good ones that I wanted to point out. So you can see this one here, this program file, Zolta, Zack, and Mixie. So what that is it's our unified communication software for our phone system. So what I can do with that is, let's take this Zack one, for example. I'll click on Customize here. So I can rename it. So let's call it Zack application. Has the path. And then what we'll do is categorize it. So most likely that's going to fit in VoIP. You can categorize it however you want, but the reason I wanted to show you this one in particular is because I do have a QoS rule in place, or a traffic shaping policy for voice over IP. So before I do this, let me show you what that looks like. Let's see if it shows it here. Yeah, okay, so here's that VoIP category, and if I expand that, you can see we have all sorts of stuff that do have signatures written against them, but obviously there's not that ZAC application. So when I go back to here and pick that, and I apologize, I clicked out of there too fast. The reason I have that is I'll just show you, sorry. Oops. So you can see I have a QoS policy applied, and basically what it is guaranteeing bandwidth for that application, or for any of those applications. And then so by coming in here and customizing that, now that'll be part of that application filter, and I don't need to do I don't need to do anything else in there. It just adds it for me. So that's kind of the power of the synchronized app control. And kind of going back to that example I gave with that BitTorrent client, same sort of deal. If you already have a policy set up that blocks BitTorrent and that shows up as uncategorized, I just come in there, put it in peer-to-peer, and it just adds it automatically to that. So really cool. And then from there, in our reports, we'll be able to, instead of it saying uncategorized, so as I get that list more detailed and categorized, then we'll actually get to see what's going on in our network, just not 3.7 gig of unclassified traffic. That doesn't really help us all that much. So really, really exciting feature on the application control. And then the last one I want to talk about that we touched on was the content filters. So basically what it is let me back out of here. So I have a little list I created, and it's as simple as literally creating a text file with all the words that you want to block. And then once I have that, I just upload it. And then I come to my web policy and apply it. So I've already done this. So I just created a rule that says any web traffic that contains my bad keywords list that I created, block it. And so we can test that out here in real time. So I think one of my words, I can't remember, I played with this so much. Okay, terrorism. Oops. Sorry, my mouse is really acting up on me here. So let's just do a Google search for terrorism. Oh, and I guarantee I spelled that wrong. Terrorism. I should have picked an easier word to spell. So let's just click on any of these. And you can see just based on that keyword filter, it doesn't allow me to go there. As you can see in our other, I mean, just to show you that it's not blocking it because of a category. We don't really have much going on. We're just have more of a security web policy going on than an actual web filtering policy. So, and then from there we get the report, and hopefully it's populated. I think I did this morning. Yeah, so you can see a couple of the keywords that were triggered and who, and I don't have user identification turned on just on this setup, but if we did, we would get to see the actual user that was trying to search those bad keywords. I mean, we're right at half an hour. That's where I wanted to keep it, and I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to show. Any more questions coming in?
Yeah, I got a couple more for you. I'm going to try to stump you with a couple of these too. So one question is this version release going to apply to the XG virtual appliance as well?
Yep, definitely. Hardware, software, virtual, yep.
Okay, and this might be the tough one. XG admin classroom training is available in the UK. Is it coming stateside soon, or is it already here to attend?
I wish we had. I know we have Samantha and Eric on from Sophos, but I know they can't talk. I saw a roadmap on that, and the short answer is yes. And gosh, if we know who asked that question, let's get back to them, because I do know the answer is yes. I just don't know the time frame.
Okay. Yep. We can get back to them. Yeah, multiple people asking about that, so we'll make sure we get that out to you guys. And if anyone knows on the Sophos team, I know we have some Sophos people on, you can just throw it in the question area too, and I can relay it. Any other questions out there, go ahead and type them in. Again, I really appreciate, this is the most interaction we've had on one of these. This really fires us up, because we really like the kind of the back and forth, making sure we're at least trying to answer some of these. Some of these are easier to answer than others. But if there's not any more questions, I'll make sure we get that question answered for a couple of you. And thanks again for attending. Please provide us some feedback. Tell us what else you want to see. You know, we keep trying to make every webinar topic a little different, and we're just trying to be your thought leader on all this stuff. So I think we have to be one of the first resellers coming out with information on this, and that's kind of our idea. Is we want to be your source of information, all things Sophos and everything IT. I mean, we've had other topics above and beyond Sophos as well. So please give us some feedback, and we'll make sure we're getting the content to you guys. And I'm getting an answer. Let's see. All right, so Samantha from Sophos is just saying, we have customer certification programs which are online. We don't have a specific classroom training scheduled right now, but if we have enough interest, we might be able to get a class scheduled in Montana. That's pretty cool. I guess I'll hold you to that, Samantha. We'll drive some attendance and see if we can have something, maybe tie it to a tech event or something around the area. So we'll make that a work in progress on our end.
Yeah, and I apologize. I might have misunderstood the question, because yes, that's obviously correct in the online stuff. But as far as classroom, and I could be wrong. I shouldn't even bring this up, because I'm probably speaking out of turn. But I think, is there classes that you could fly to if you wanted to as an admin, or maybe that's coming down the road. But anyway, it's pretty cool that we might have an opportunity, if we have enough attendance, to do one here locally.
Yeah, and on top of that too, I just got more of a comment of, I think, and we've talked about this for a while, of doing some type of user group. And I know in other areas, Sophos does that, where they'll bring in Sophos users and do kind of a lunch and learn and sandbox together. You know, we've always, we work in such a large geography that we just wondered if we could logistically do it. But I think we should try it, and we could try it in the Bozeman area, maybe in the northern Wyoming area, and start there. And I know we have people above and beyond those regions as well, but I think that'd be a great idea, and that'd be good for our team as well to get together and talk shop. So we'll work on that. The feedback is good, because it shows that there is an interest, and that's really all we need to pursue it. So we'll stay tuned. We're going to come up with something on that.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add is one of the things I've been working on internally, and maybe this kind of goes hand in hand with what you're describing, Brandon, is one of the things I'm going to be doing internally is going, like, taking a week, like let's just say it's every Wednesday, and say, all right, today we're going to go over firewall and routing, or something like that. Next week's web, following week's IPS, and just really focus on each of the sections. So we have a good understanding of how all this works. There's a lot to it, and just create some excitement around it, how-tos. So if that is successful, maybe it's something, whether maybe we record it or maybe we open it up to a customer base. I don't know. Let's definitely think about it. But I'm glad there's interest there.